Hi, I'm Dinesh Karthik, and as always, I'm here at Cricbuzz, and you'll be seeing a lot more of me during this World Cup. But as we all know, with every World Cup that is played, there is a new generation of stars who come in, and along with that, there's always a group of players who might very well be playing their last World Cup. And here I am, speaking about a few of the players that I've interacted with, I've spent a lot of moments with, a lot of time off the field with. It's not going to be about numbers, is it? I think you all know the numbers. It's about my interactions with them and what I feel they've done for the game, the legacy that they've left. And that's what I'm going to be sharing. New Zealand have got three players that I want to speak about. These three players have been loyal servants to New Zealand cricket over a period of at least 15 years that we're talking about. Yes, they met in the Under-19 World Cup. That's where the journey together started. We're talking about Kane Williamson, the captain, Trent Boult and Tim Southee, who probably would be playing their last World Cup. They played that Under-19 World Cup held in Malaysia. They went to the semi-finals there. And it was a very, very interesting World Cup because if you see across the teams, there are a lot of players from that World Cup who have gone on to become very big players. Just an example, for India, it was Virat Kohli and Ravindra Jadeja. Moving on to Kane Williamson. He is so special as a human being. I remember having this conversation. He lives in a place about a couple of hours from Auckland, which is the main city. And I remember having a conversation, easygoing person, came with his dog, his partner was there. Very, very simple life. And you meet him and you get a Zen feeling. If you ask other New Zealand players about him and he says they have a dry sense of humor, which I experienced a little bit. But the man in itself is a genius. He's taken over the legacy from some great captains for New Zealand, Martin Crowe, Stephen Fleming, Brendan McCullum, to name a few. And we all know how good he was in 2015 as a player. And in 2019, he took it a notch up, was the player of the tournament, and he led New Zealand with absolute integrity. Trent Boult, seen him in close quarters many a times, and it's hard work to play him with the new ball. We've seen how effective he is. He's become a Mumbai Indians player through and through, and then moved on to Rajasthan Royals, but plays across leagues in the world, and he's always a threat. He's a very, very consistent wicket taker. Again, lives very close to Kane Williamson in New Zealand, and they have a very good friendship as well. And then there is Tim Southee. Well, I played with him in KKR. What a guy. He always brings a smile to my face because he's got this wicked, wacky sense of humor that I quite enjoy on a personal level. But what a bowler he's been as well. He started with this top ball, his outswing, which is still there with him. But then he decided that he needed to up his arsenal and brought that scramble seam, and he was a different bowler post that. Arguably one of their best fast bowlers over a period of time. And for me, these three cricketers walking into the sunset post this World Cup would be a big loss for New Zealand, but the one thing that definitely will stay with them is the legacy that they've left behind as players. They have been great players and great servants to New Zealand cricket. Australia, David Warner, Glenn Maxwell and Steven Smith. Let's start with David Warner. The first time I ever saw him was the knock he played against South Africa in Melbourne. And man, what a knock it was. He took down a Dale Steyners, hitting him over deep mid wicket. Delhi Daredevils at that stage, the scouting talent said that here is a great talent, and they picked him. It's very interesting to know that Virat Kohli and David Warner made their debuts just 5 months after each other in 2008, and David Warner made it in 2009. But Virat Kohli has played 280 ODI matches. And guess what? David Warner has just played 150. Tells you the volume of cricket India play and how less Australia play. This is going to be his third World Cup. 2015 was his first. He did well there. He went on to win. So his first shot at World Cup meant he won the tournament. 2019, he was the second highest run getter, just behind Rohit Sharma by 1 run. Then went on to captain Sunrisers, took them to glory. And you have to say he literally batted them into winning that tournament. He was so consistent at the strike rates that he got runs were phenomenal. But the ODI format as well has been something he's been so strong in, so consistent. Steven Smith. Well, what do you say about him? Everything about him is unorthodox. You meet the man and you realize he is a very different person. I saw him in the World Test Championship final. I just picked up his bat. And underneath the bat, I saw Virat Kohli written. And I'm thinking, Virat Kohli? I asked him, so did Virat Kohli give you this bat? He said, yes. He's almost been playing with Virat Kohli's bat for some time now. And he told me that for the Ashes, which just happened, he was waiting for Virat Kohli to send another bat. That's the kind of relationship and friendship some of the greats share. And it's so good to know because people think that there's a lot of enmity and the fact that, one is trying to do one up on the other, but there's also an underlying friendship and a respect that goes between all these greats. And Steven Smith, you could argue that he is probably one of the greatest test batsmen ever. But in the one-day format, not many Indians will forget how well he batted in Sydney in the 2015 World Cup in the semi-finals. He lost the wicket, he came in and got a lovely 100 and took them into the final, and they ended up winning the World Cup. Last but not the least, Glenn Maxwell. I have played with him in a couple of places. Started with Mumbai Indians in 2013. He was a fringe player then, didn't make it to the 11 a lot in the IPL. But soon after that, about a few months later, we had the Champions Trophy. He came in for Mumbai Indians and showed why he was so valuable. Not only could he bowl, he could make an impact right through the middle. Again, very similar to David Warner, a little brash, had his moments. But a man who I cut and see him in RCB now, changed a lot. He is very different to what he was when I saw him in Mumbai Indians. He's gone through the grind, must say. He's been picked for big prizes at times, not performing to the expectations that franchise has put on him. But through all of that, shown the world why he is consistently picked at that price, because he can bat at different places and change the game in a moment that nobody expects him to. Can bowl valuably through the middle, like the recent 4-wicket haul that we just saw in the last match in Rajkot. When it comes to England, the list is a bit too long with the number of players that they have, because they have a very experienced team and it shows. But let's talk about two of the greatest ever English players. Let's start with Jos Buttler. How good is he? You ask any bowler in the world and they probably will tell you they fear Jos Buttler the most, just for the sort of shots that he can play, the sort of innings that could change the game in the whiff of a breath. But most importantly, here we're not speaking about how good their skill levels are. We're going to speak about the person. Him and Morgan in 2015, and they didn't have a good time. And soon after, we know how they changed things. Jos Buttler became the vice captain. Ian Morgan was the captain. And man, have they changed English cricket. If you see England today, they are probably the most attractive team to be playing international cricket. And if you had to go across sport, you could say England's transition of how they've played pre-2015 to how they're playing post that has been a story that a lot of sport will take inspiration from. And right at the helm of it, we have Jos Buttler, a player who, again, has created a legacy for himself in English cricket. And that's what you want to do. It's not about the numbers so much. It's about how people will remember you when you finish the sport. And Jos Buttler, in the context of English cricket, will always be held in high regard. Ben Stokes. What do you speak about Ben Stokes? There are players who play the game, and there are players who leave a mark when they play a game. And that is Ben Stokes for you. Completely selfless. I have seen him bowl a spell in Birmingham in 2018. We needed about 100 runs and me and Virat Kohli were batting. We walked into the morning. I got out the slip of James Anderson, but Virat Kohli was batting really well. The only thing that stood between India and victory was one man, Ben Stokes. And that's the cricketer that every nation craves to have. And Ben Stokes will be right up there at the top of the list, because every time England has been under pressure, you can ask any Englishman, anybody who follows the sport, who they want out there, they'll tell you one name: Ben Stokes. He has a happy knack of inviting people over WhatsApp, and people respond to him because that's the kind of affection and respect he's garnered over a period of time. And people love to play for him as a leader. Might not be the captain in this one, but I promise you, he's a leader in the dressing room. And one man who has the respect of all the cricketers and his peers. Recently concluded interview, Virat Kohli says his favorite cricketer is Ben Stokes. And I'll leave it at that. That's the kind of man he is. Moving on to South Africa. There are quite a few cricketers there, but South Africa is probably one of the youngest teams to put their names out there on the park. But there are two cricketers who I believe will be playing the last World Cup. One, interestingly, has announced already that he's done with ODI cricket, and that's Quinton de Kock. Let's start with him. He is one of the most prodigious talents to come out of that land. I've heard folklore saying he was so good at the under-19 level that there was a match where he went blindfolding one eye. He felt that the standard was so low that he had to close one eye to bat to get some sort of pressure on himself to score those runs. That's the kind of guy he is. He's a man who can obviously score runs at the top of the order. A very underrated cricketer, and in my books, one of the best cricketers, best keepers in world cricket. But more than all that, he was always touted to become the next big thing after A.B. de Villiers, and he's lived up to that in many, many ways. He is one of those where the numbers might not really flatter you. You look at that and go, okay, he was good but not great. But I can tell you, in terms of talent, stroke making, and his ability to perform for the team, he's second to none. David Miller, first time I saw him was when I played for Kings 11. and they picked him as a replacement. And they said his nickname is Pup. I assumed it'd be somebody small, that's why they named him Pup, but clearly not. He was one strong man who could hit the ball a long, long way. Just making his mark into South African cricket at that point, but they earmarked him as a future potential batter in the middle. And boy, he's done really well for them, especially after he got into the Gujarat Titans team. It's like he flicked a switch and things changed. He's become so consistent, has started to play spin so well. We all know how good he can be at the death. He is somebody who's really improved as a batter, put in the hard work and done what it is required to become a good player in subcontinent. But does he have another World Cup in him? I would be very, very surprised. Let's start with their best player ever in the history of Bangladesh cricket, Shakib Al Hasan. What a player he's turned out to be. Yes, there's been some turmoil in the recent past, and that's always bound to happen. A bit of drama leading into a World Cup is always good. We know there have been so many other stories over a period of time for different teams. They've gone on to do special things in the World Cup that probably motivates them to do a lot better. Let's just hope that's the case for Bangladesh, because with Shakib Al Hasan being there as the captain, they have a tactically shrewd man, a man who has a lot of experience, not only playing international cricket, but across the globe in franchisee cricket. He is probably one of the most sought-after players. Wicketkeeper batsman Mushfiqur Rahim, the first time I saw him in 2007, and he's been playing his fifth World Cup as we speak today. He's been around for a long, long time, and he is one of those, not the most talented. But if you ever had to say hard work pays off, I think Mushfiqur Rahim would be the answer for Bangladesh, for a lot of the young kids in Bangladesh to look up to him, because he's always the first man to get into practice, and he bats and bats and bats and keeps, and he's the last man to get out of the ground. You ask any of the coaches and they will say he's a coach killer. He loves to bat. He likes throwdowns. He wants to be there. There have been a few who have done that in international cricket, and I can promise you one thing, none of them have ever failed. Are these all the players who might be playing their last World Cup? One thing surely, the next set of names I'm going to talk about are the ones you, me, and none of us want for it to be their last World Cup, but it could very well be. I'm just guessing. I don't know. In the next part of this video blog, we will talk about Virat, Rohit, and a few more. Do join us for some stories from a part of my life I have spent with them, I have interacted with them, and most importantly, try and watch it because I have had some great memories with a lot of the cricketers that I'm going to be speaking about.